Continuing to follow major breaking news tonight, Donald Trump naming RNC Chair Reince Priebus as his chief of staff, also selecting Steve Bannon, his campaign CEO and executive chairman of Breitbart News, as his chief strategist and senior counsel. Let's bring back in my panel David Gergen, a CNN senior political analyst and former presidential advisor to 4 presidents, is with us. Jack Kingston is back, former congressman from Georgia. Brian Stelter, our CNN senior media correspondent and host of Reliable Sources, is with us, and Simone Sanders, CNN political commentator and former press secretary for Bernie Sanders. Let us dive into Steve Bannon first, because he's the one, frankly, getting a lot of the attention tonight over Reince Priebus, because this is a surprise announcement to name 2 men basically as equals, as Trump put it in the press release, and this is a very controversial pick. Brian, why? Uniquely controversial, and I want to recognize a lot of our viewers at home. This is frightening to them, and I think we should acknowledge that. This may feel to a lot of our viewers at home like a national emergency. Why? Because Steve Bannon has been described as someone who has been described as a white supremacist, as someone who's an anti-Semite. Now, he would completely reject that, but these are not random people on Twitter saying it. These are people like Ana Navarro saying these sorts of things. There was a 2007 case between Bannon and his ex-wife, where his ex-wife alleged in court documents that Bannon said he did not like Jews. Now, he denied that, completely denied that. And there are friends of his who say they've known him for years and have never heard a racist word or action from his mouth. All that said, Bannon is uniquely controversial. John Weaver, Kasich strategist, saying on Twitter this evening, the racist, fascist, extreme right is now represented footsteps from the Oval Office. Congressman Kingston, why do you disagree with those descriptions of Steve Bannon?
When somebody quotes an ex-spouse, I hardly think it's worth responding to. Ex-spouses never say, or very rarely say, complimentary things. I've worked with Steve Bannon.
So even if you were to put that aside, respond to Weaver, Kasich strategist.
Ana Navarro is calling him a white supremacist Neanderthal. You know, and she's a conservative.
Anna's a friend of mine, but she's also somebody who did not support Donald Trump. And, you know, I understand why people want to continue this campaign, but I can say this, as somebody who has been involved with this campaign and worked somewhat with Steve Bannon, I found him to be an honorable guy, a hard-working guy. I understand why the left fears him. I understand why they want to label him and continue to stir the pot. They're very disappointed in the results of the campaign.
Brian just pointed out John Weaver, a strategist for Kasich and Ana Navarro. Those are two conservatives.
A strategist for Kasich is hardly an objective party. I mean, Kasich, you know, voted for John McCain. He's a never-Trumper. I know John Kasich. I like John Kasich, but he's a never-Trumper. I can say this, as somebody who worked with Steve Bannon, I did not see any of these horrible charges that keep coming up. And remember, this is what we heard in early August when he got on board. Oh, the campaign is going to turn into a racist outfit and a horrible organization. But the rhetoric, which the left loves to refer to, all happened pre-Steve Bannon. And
David
he worked
Gergen,
extremely well
I'm running out of time.
Kellyanne.
David Gergen, would you agree? What do you say to the congressman on that point? He says, look, the worst stuff was pre-Bannon.
He's got some good points, and I think he's trying to represent a position honestly. Look, I think it's fairly or unfairly, Steve Bannon has become a symbol for many outside who did not vote for Trump, but who are now in the streets. And you know, they're deeply aggrieved. And there's a real sense they're being marginalized, and that white nationalism has reared its head, that racism has reared its head, that sexism has reared its head, and there are people deeply concerned about this. Donald Trump is entitled to put anybody he wants in the White House. That goes with the territory. But when he does that, he has to understand that symbolically it does send a message. And I do think the time is coming. In fact, I think it's here, when Mr. Trump needs to address the country to assure people that he is going to respect the rights of all Americans, that he is not going to diminish their rights, that he is not going after gays and transgender, and he's not going to put women. I think he needs to appoint some women. Look, you know, the New York Times published a list of 44 individuals who are now being considered for a top post, cabinet, White House, by Mr. Trump and his team. 44 individuals, 5 are women. 5 are women.
Simone Sanders.
He has to address some of these things.
Simone Sanders, your thoughts on the pick of Steve Bannon?
I think Donald Trump just put the alt-right, and to put it more plainly, Donald Trump just put a white supremacist, the leader of a white supremacist movement, modern-day white supremacist movement, in the White House, in the top post in the White House. And that is absolutely dangerous. We cannot normalize this. There was nothing normal about Donald Trump's campaign, and we are absolutely crazy to think that there's going to be anything normal about his presidency. I agree that Donald Trump, I agree with David, Donald Trump needs to come out and say something to assail the fears of the American people. But unfortunately, by putting Steve Bannon in the people's house, again, a leader of a white supremacist movement, someone who has stoked anti-Semitism, racism, that's not going to calm anyone's fears.
You will all be back with me. Obviously, Steve Bannon would say he is anything but a white supremacist, but you heard concerns from other conservatives as well tonight on this pick. Guys, I got to get to break. Much more of our breaking news ahead. Stay with us. You're live in the CNN Newsroom.